Hello and welcome. SNY has some breaking news. The Jets have fired head coach Robert Saleh after 2-3 start. Woody Johnson has never fired a coach in season. I'm Jeane Coakley. I'm joined by Willie Colon and Steve Gelbs. And Steve, I'm going to start with you. As you can see, I'm shocked. I just got out of the shower. How shocked are you? And did they need to do this?
I am shocked that it happened today. I'm not shocked that it happened. I do think they needed to do this, quite frankly. I don't think this fixes everything, but Robert Saleh, 20-36 in 4 years, and we understand that he was handcuffed by certain things over the years and didn't have great quarterback play at any point until arguably this season, although we haven't seen it consistently yet. But at some point, you are what your record says you are, and I think beyond just the record, the most damning things that we've seen consistently with Robert Saleh teams that have not improved are things that you can point to as coaching issues, right? The insane amount of penalties that we've seen week in, week out that never got better. You always point to the head coach when you talk about penalties, and that has been a constant theme of this team throughout the 4 years under Saleh. I also think, and this is maybe the most damning thing, if you look at what the Jets have done and looked like with more time to prepare, so coming off of bye weeks or mini buys where they had extra time, it almost seemed as if they were stale, as if they were worse than just the regular scheduled weeks, which is always something that again is pretty tough on the head coach. And I think when you look at Robert Saleh in totality, one of the things that he was brought in here for is his energy and his ability to inspire. And I think as this tenure has gone on, he has seemed beat down at times. And, almost you'd see those shots on the sidelines where he'd just kind of be standing there with that blank stare. So, again, incredibly nice guy, fantastic defensive mind, but someone who got a lot of opportunities. And in a win now, championship or bust type season, you just couldn't give him that much rope. And ultimately the Jets did not, and they made that move today.
Yeah, I think the running theme these last couple of weeks has been accountability, right? It starts with Aaron Rodgers and his presser, especially after the loss to the Broncos. Then you hear Quincy Williams say it at the end of the game against the Vikings. And so, Gelbs hit it right on the head, man. They've had time to prepare. They've had time to kind of get themselves right. And when you hear the constant theme of accountability, you talk about the penalties, you talk about the lack of production on offense, you have every weapon you need. We said starting the season that this was on paper, this is probably one of the best rosters the Jets put together, and they're not getting it done on the field. And it's troubling because we and Gelbs, and we all watch the Jets. I know, Jeane, you cover them closely. It doesn't seem like there's any different from what we seen last year to this year, and we have all the pieces. We have the offensive line is better. Aaron Rodgers is actually walking onto the field. We have the pieces on the outside. And this defense, the valid they have their deficiencies, they are putting up a good fight, and they're keeping this team in the hunt. So at the end of the day, man, I'm surprised that the firing happened right now. I thought this was at least if it was to happen, maybe the bye week. But this is Woody Johnson saying enough is enough. So it's a call and response, and here's the answer.
Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, is the Jets' new interim head coach. The thing is that they're 2-3, but Monday night they're playing the Buffalo Bills. They beat Buffalo. They're now in first place of the AFC East. Do you think that's why, like you said, the decision was made right now? You needed Ulbrich in there to kind of change the mood? Steve?
I don't know. I think when you look at this team right now, we sit there and watch that London game, and I think the most troubling thing that's happened thus far these last 2 weeks is Aaron Rodgers hobbled off the field. When he goes back to the Bronco game, him limping. Against the Broncos, He's 42 years old. He threw the ball 42 times, right? You talk about the lack of creativity on offense. You talk about possibly bringing a Devontae Adams, and I don't know if that's the answer. So the problem is, as a head coach, you got to be able to put out fires, and you got to have answers to the test, and it doesn't seem like the answers are being had. So moving forward, there needed to be a knee-jerk reaction. This seems like it, but Buffalo right now, they're going to get better because the way they're built from the inside out, they have an offensive line, they have a run game, they have a defense that's scrappy and that's going to put up a fight. They have Josh Allen, who's arguably the top 5 best quarterback in the league. So they're going to figure it out. Right now with the Jets, it doesn't seem like they have the will or they have enough on the inside to figure it out. So it's I think everybody in the building, I was a part of a firing. When Rex left the building, man, it was ugly. Jeane, you was in the building when that happened. watching Rex get escorted out by security with him screaming was probably one of the most surreal things I've ever witnessed as a football player. From a locker room standpoint, the leaders in that locker room, they're kind of scratching their head. Where do we go now? Because this is bigger than them, right? This is them really trying to figure out. We're only 5 going into 6 weeks into the season, and we don't have the answers to anything. And our so-called leader just got escorted out the building. And mind you, this is the beginning of October. This is a lot for a Jets team that's trying to be optimistic. And to Gelb's point, this was a win now. Their goal is to win now. And now your leader right now is getting escorted out the building. This is different, man. It's different.
Yeah,
and sorry, Steven, you're part of a team, the Mets, that started off poorly, obviously, and they had this big boost. Do you think this could be that thing that the Jets needed?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the Mets, because the one thing that I really believe got them through that early difficulty was their manager, was Carlos Mendoza. And being around Carlos Mendoza, and listen, I'm not around Robert Saleh on a day in, day out basis, but certainly keeping up with everything that goes on over there and watching these press conferences and how he talks to the media, there's a distinct difference between the two. And I think that the biggest difference to me is a conviction and a steadiness, right? You want that leader to be 100% convicted in what he's doing, in what he's saying, whether or not the reaction publicly or privately is positive. And that is what it's been somewhat surprising to see from a first-year manager in Carlos Mendoza, but we have not seen that over the years with Robert Saleh. We didn't see that recently when it came to him saying, well, maybe the cadence from Aaron Rodgers, maybe that's part of the reason that you're seeing all these pre-snap penalties. And then as soon as Aaron Rodgers said, well, hold on a second, maybe his cadence should be used and viewed as a weapon, maybe there's another answer. Maybe it's holding guys accountable. To have Robert Saleh then come back to the podium and flip-flop on that, that's not something that you want to hear from a coach, from a leader. And so, for me, I think, again, you need some really strong leadership in any professional sports league, but especially in the NFL, especially with football players. And I just don't get the sense that Saleh completely had the total control that was necessary, that was needed in this room. And at times, I think because he was such a nice guy, he walked this line of trying to be the friend, trying to publicly have players' backs when there were times where they needed a little bit of a kick in the rear. And he never really gave that to them, certainly not publicly. And I'm not sure that he did that privately. And so, again, when you talk about where this team is right now, you're right. Everything is in front of them, Jeane. They still have plenty of opportunities to turn this into the season that they needed. But maybe this change is that wake-up call that's needed. And, maybe Jeff Ulbrich can be the type of CEO that Saleh just wasn't with this team. And I'm going to say one other thing, because then I'm going to have to go, because like you said, you mentioned the Mets. Apparently there's something going on over in Queens today that I got to get to. But we talked, a little bit before the season, Willie. I remember, when we were just getting together, and the one fear that I think we all had when you talked about the expectations for this season was that, okay, the talent is clearly there, and maybe the talent is good enough to win the division in the regular season. But when you start getting into the postseason and into the deep rounds of the postseason and, the championship games, the Super Bowl, is Robert Saleh going to be the guy that out schemes or equally schemes up a team against an Andy Reid, against a Kyle Shanahan? When you get to those stages, when you are trying to win a Super Bowl, the coaches need to elevate whatever is on the field, whatever their cards have been dealt at that point in the season when it's a war of attrition. And we had not seen the Jets ever out-scheme opponents, certainly on the offensive end, sometimes on the defensive end, but certainly on the offensive end. And with this talent, you needed somebody that was going to do that. And so, again, to take it full circle here, I think this was a move that had to be made if the Jets had any chance of turning this season into the year ultimately that they want it to be.
All right, Steve. We appreciate you
right,
joining
no,
us.
I mean,
We got to let Steve
go
go,
ahead,
Willie.
Steve.
Again, he has something to do in Queens. I don't know.
No, but Jeane, you can let Willie say I was right, and then I can go. Go ahead.
Willie, you going to agree with him?
No, I think Gelbs is right. I think if you turn on the game, listen, the Sunday against the Steelers and Cowboys, you watch Mike McCarthy out scheme Mike Tomlin, right? And they didn't have Michael Parsons or DeMarcus Lawrence, and that defense held tight and was able to win on a last minute throw from Dak Prescott. But moving forward, Gelbs, go back to the opening week, the Niners versus the Jets, week 1. Like, they didn't have any adjustments to way into the fourth quarter, and the game was over by then. And this is supposed to be Saleh's former house, and this is supposed to be Saleh's new team. There should have been some insight or some nugget that could have got the Jets in the right direction defensively, and it never happened. So I think if you're Robert Saleh if you're the Jets, going forward, now you have to ask the question, well, who's the next guy up that's going to be that difference maker? Because you can bring anybody. I know they talked about Jeff Ulbrich, but who's going to be that next guy to get this team in the right track in the middle of the game when their adjustments need to be made? And I don't know if they have that in building right now.
All right, well, Steve, you go do your thing, what you have to do at Queens. And I think Jets fans are hoping that what did the Mets season happens with the Jets, and they'll be celebrating in the postseason as well.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, see you soon, guys. Yep.
All right.
And Willie, you're sticking with me. Willie, we talk about Jeff Ulbrich coming into the defense. Let's talk about this offense, though, because there's still a problem on the offense. How does Jeff Ulbrich and how does firing Robert Saleh fix that?
Listen, man, we talked about it week after week. The lack of run game production is probably the biggest issue, right? When you have Breece Hall, who's fully healthy, there's nothing wrong with Breece Hall from what he dealt with last year. You have all 5 guys valid. You have Morgan Moses out right now, but you have the young fella Fashanu up. Offensively, they just aren't together, right? I talked about this Sunday in the post game. There's nothing right now you can look at the Jets from an offensive side and say, this is what they do well. Seems very sporadic. A lot of times you see the miscues from Aaron Rodgers. It looks like he's not on the same page with his receiving core. The offensive line seems like they're off. And it kind of spirals that way through most of the game. And I thought, the interesting thing about Aaron Rodgers, why I think we were all excited with him being a part of this offense, was like we finally have a quarterback that can cover up the deficiencies on offense, right? Like he can do things from the neck up that other quarterbacks that wore the green and white that simply couldn't do. And we only saw it technically one time, and that was the Tennessee game when he was able to come out and then win that game. And they started off slow, but they was able to rally in the second half. And then you see the New England game, you're like, okay, that's the Aaron Rodgers we've been waiting for. And then to have the break, and then you see the Denver Bronco game, and it was an absolute dumpster fire. Then you see what happened in London and Minnesota, and you're like, man, this ain't it. This is going in the wrong direction. And it looks, and the more you watch the Jets and the more you watch Aaron Rodgers, it looks like he gets older by the quarter. His lack of mobility I think has become more blatant as those games come on. So it's tough, man, because I know they do have the pieces. I feel like that is a very good locker room, but it's all about the dub. It's all about what you put on tape and how you produce, and they just simply aren't doing it right now.
All right, breaking news into SNY Studios. I'm Jeane Coakley alongside Willie Colon. The Jets have fired Robert Saleh after his 2-3 start. And Willie, you've been coached by some great coaches, some great defensive coaches, and you're an offensive player. Yeah. As an offensive player, what do you need to see from a head coach?
I think Gelbs hit it right on the head. I think you just have to have a plan and a vision and believe it. One thing I give Rex Ryan a lot of credit. No matter what we look like, he believed we were going to win, and he was determined, and he would do a lot of different things that he probably didn't talk about on air to help us go in the right direction. We just didn't have a lot of pieces, and we kind of struggled. We had a young rookie quarterback in Geno Smith at the time, and so we kind of weren't on the same page in that regard. Overall, man, I think anytime a coach steps into a locker room and you're going to be a leader of men, most locker rooms match the personality of their head coach. So if you're fiery and you're ready to go and you're talking about what you need to do and you're detailed in your approach, most guys follow that. People don't give ball players a lot of credit. We're able to adjust. This locker room will adjust. They will pivot and go as their leader goes, as their head coach goes. So whoever that is, if it is Jeff has to be clear, talk with clarity, be very precise, be very deliberate, and understand that, hey, while I'm the guy, this is how things are going to be run, needs to be run. And hopefully they add heat to that, because at the end of the day, the Jets need just one win. Just get one win and stack another win, and things would be right where they need to be.
Yes, as you know, winning always solves everything. All right, we're going to welcome in our SNY NFL insider, Connor Hughes. And Connor, I know we've talked. There you are. I know we've talked. again, you're just as shocked as all of us that this happened today. What's the latest and what do you know?
Yeah, Jeane, I've talked with players and management and coaches on Robert Saleh's staff, and no one at all saw this coming whatsoever. This is a shockwave that is still resonating throughout the locker room and entire building, for that matter. This was something where, from my understanding, on Monday, the entire coaching staff showed up for work as usual. They began the preliminary game plan for the Buffalo Bills. They do have an extra day to prepare, so it wasn't as intense as a Monday would have been. But they had the preliminary meetings and stuff like that. They reviewed the Viking film. They all went home, and then they showed up on Tuesday to continue their work, and Robert Saleh was informed that he no longer has a job. Again, shocking, stunned were the words that I've got. I mean, I think a lot of people are still looking for answers. In fact, one coach that I touched base with actually told me that he felt that the person who was most in jeopardy of losing his job because of the way that upper management had really been riding him for the last couple of weeks was Nathaniel Hackett, having to answer for why the offense has struggled so much. Robert was not somebody that was believed to be in jeopardy, in large part because this is a defensive-minded coach whose defense is performing at a top 5 to top 10 level at worst. But this was also told to me that this was a decision made by Woody Johnson and ownership. This was not a Joe Douglas move. He and Robert Saleh have been in lockstep since they started working together, have been in lockstep the entire way this year. This was, from what I was told, and the reasoning that ownership gave for wanting the coaching change, is they just did not believe that this team was capable of turning it around with Robert Saleh head coach. So it was, it was completely and totally a surprise. It was, again, I think, honestly, guys, the thing that probably surprises me the most with this, and Willie, maybe you can touch upon it a little bit more, is that when I look at the issues that the Jets have, and we can talk about what Quincy Williams said to Jeane after the game when he talked about accountability, right? I don't look at that as accountability from the coaching staff holding the players available. I looked at that as a defense that for the last 3 years has been playing some of the best football, consistent football that we've seen from a Jets defense probably since Rex Ryan was around. They have been dominating on that side of the ball, and they just haven't had it on the offensive side. And it doesn't matter whether Zach Wilson was quarterback. It doesn't matter when you have a 4-time MVP in Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. These problems that the Jets have, it's fundamental in what they're trying to do. It's the scheme that is so basic. It's the lack of innovation. It's the lack of creativity. It's that this is an elementary offense that they are trotting out week in and week out because what they believe, and this is what the quarterback wants and what the offensive coordinator wants, is that we don't need motion. We don't need to scheme guys up. Just get to the line with this guy left, this guy right, tight end in, or get our players to the line. Let Aaron Rodgers see the defense, and then we'll win even if the defense knows what's coming. What I think we've seen is what 31 other NFL teams have seen, which is that doesn't always work. That when you have talent that's on par, which is what we saw in the Vikings game, where the Vikings are as physically talented as the Jets, you need a coaching staff that is going to scheme you to a victory. That is the differing point when you have teams that are so closely matched. The Jets with Robert Saleh were at a disadvantage on the offensive side of the ball when it came to scheming against the upper echelon of teams. The Jets without Robert Saleh, Willie, I still believe that they are at a disadvantage when scheming against the top-tier offensive teams.
And Willie, Willie, you just heard Connor say that people thought Nathaniel Hackett was going to be the one. Nathaniel Hackett is still there, and the offense is still struggling. As an offensive guy, how does that give you confidence?
Well, it doesn't, and I think Connor hit it right on the head. The fact that this offense looks very remedial, and I thought one of the biggest issues, and me and Bart was talking about it. You know, the issue I felt was some of the miscues with you see Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams, and I know Mike Williams was a pitch count. Is I thought Aaron Rodgers should have been playing in the preseason, at least a quarter, just to try to get some of those kinks out, just so he can get on the same page with his offense. Him not playing the whole preseason. I thought really is part of the reason why this offense looks so slow and looks so stagnant. When you see Josh Allen play, when you see Patrick Mahomes play, some of the elite quarterbacks in this league really get out there and work out this cues and work out some of these things that really are necessary for the preseason. So when the season starts, you're ready to go and you're ready to rock. And there's a sense of non-communication that everybody's on the same page. And now you're looking at time after time with Aaron Rodgers pointing out a receiver or there's things at the line of scrimmage that just doesn't seem to be clicking with this offense. It is up to Nathaniel Hackett to figure out how can I get that thing sped up where this offense is moving at a faster pace. I think to your point, what Connor hit it on the head as well is we have pieces. The fact that Conklin can have a great game the week prior and then he barely get any touches this past Sunday against the Vikings. When you see Breece Hall not being able to get going in the run game, his lack of ability to attack the edge. Even on the 4th and 1 against the Vikings, that was a horrible play call. I don't mind going for it on 4th and 1, but the play took so long to develop, and that's why they got stopped. And the Vikings were able to move on from there. So I think little things like that, there's always situational football that offensive coordinators have to be great at. And right now, Nathaniel Hackett isn't great at situational football, especially when it comes to the offensive side and getting guys open and really getting guys to the point where they can be productive within the offense.
And the justification, too, and I've heard this from Jet sources, is that ownership believes that, and it is true, Robert Saleh is the head coach, so he has the autonomy to go in and step in and make the changes that he wants to make. But I just, again, what changes is Robert expected to make when it's an offense and an offensive coordinator that is clearly bending over backwards for their 4-time MVP quarterback, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers came to the Jets because he did not like the scheme that Matt LaFleur was running in Green Bay. He didn't like all the motions. He didn't like all the creativity. He didn't like all that. He wanted it to just get to the line and let us play football. That's what Aaron Rodgers wanted. That's what Nathaniel Hackett deployed. That's what they did. So, yeah, Robert Saleh could have stepped in and said, no, now we're doing all these different things. We're doing all this creativity. We're making all these changes. Jeane, the motioning, the scheming guys open, that type of an offense that everyone wants, the Kyle Shanahan offense, the Matt LaFleur offense, the Jets had that. They had Mike LaFleur in here running it, and they didn't want the motions anymore. They fired Mike LaFleur because they didn't believe that Mike LaFleur had the offensive capability of doing it. So they bring in the guy who's going to run the basic offensive scheme, and now that doesn't work as well. And it's just, it feels like there is a lot of it being put on Robert when it wasn't necessarily Robert. If you want to say, yeah, he's the head coach, he runs the entire operation, I 100% get it. You're right. He's the head coach. He runs the entire operation. But he's going to step in and completely blow up the offensive scheme that you've worked so hard the last 2 years to put in place to satisfy the quarterback that you lured here from Green Bay. Like, I just don't see it. And I will say this because this text literally just came in. This is a former Jets offensive player. I've kept touch with him since he left the Jets. He hasn't played here in a year or so. But all the text message just says, wow, even Gase made it through the whole season. So that just kind of tells you what this is playing with current players. This is playing with former players. And this is just news that is going all around the league. And Willie, this might come as a surprise. I didn't play in the NFL. I think if I was bigger, stronger, faster, and more athletic, I might have had a chance to maybe play college football.
No.
But aside from that, I don't know if you're Devontae Adams. And you're right now, you do have a legitimate say in terms of where you might want to go. Do you believe that this could alter his opinion on where he wants to go? Like as a play, would you see something like this happening and say, you know what, I know Aaron's there, but maybe this isn't the stable environment I want to go to?
Wait, before you answer that, the Jets did just send out a press release, and I'm just going to read this real quick. Hold that thought, okay, Willie? This is from the Jets. This morning, I informed Robert Saleh that he will no longer serve as the head coach of the Jets. I thanked him for his hard work these past 3.5 years and wished him and his family well moving forward. This was not an easy decision, but we are not where we should be given our expectations, and I believe now is the best time for us to move in a different direction. Jeff Ulbrich will serve as our interim head coach for the remainder of the season. He is a tough coach who has the respect of the coaches and players on this team. I believe he, along with the coaches on this staff, can get the most out of our talented team and attain the goals we established this offseason. That was a statement from Woody Johnson. Let's just touch upon this real quick and we'll go back to that question. Willie, when you hear that Jeff Ulbrich will serve as an interim head coach, he is a tough coach who is respected of the coaches and the players on this team. What do you expect from Jeff Ulbrich, and what does that say?
Well, I think it comes down to expectations, right? That's the key word I heard in that statement. The fact that they haven't met expectations, the fact that right now this team, time after time, looks like the same old Jets. There's too much money on this roster for this Jets to look like the same old Jets. And Woody is flat out tired of, he was pissed off. He was pissed off last year, right? They were blindsided with the fact that Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and there was no, Daniel Hackett couldn't get this offense together. also at the fact that when you talk about what happened last year, Zach Wilson didn't get better. He actually he got worse. And so it started to spiral. And then if you're Woody Johnson, if you're looking at this year, what's changed, right? Nothing's changed. Even with Aaron Rodgers, with the pieces you've been able to acquire, with a new revamped offensive line, with a defense playing, to Connor's point, out of its over its skis. So I think when you talk about expectations, the expectations aren't being met. And Valley is still early in the season to change this thing around. But Jeff, hopefully, is a breath of fresh air. Hopefully that the guys in that locker room really look at him as the leader. And hopefully Woody Johnson is happy with him at the helm. I mean, right now, I don't see anybody else in the building they could have went to. Maybe Tubbs at the end of the day. I know the tight end coach. But
Middleton.
Overall, man, this is still going to be an adjustment for this locker room. They have to now look at him like, all right, you're our guy. We're going with you. Make it better. What's different? Prove it. And that's the only way to roll.
And I can tell you, and I know, Connor, you can probably say the same thing. We're in the locker room. We see these guys. Jeff Ulbrich is very much respected. Players love him. He's a great guy. So I don't necessarily see a huge difference. What do you think, Connor? Like I said, guys love Jeff Ulbrich. Offense and defense.
No, I actually talked specifically to DJ Reed for an SNY pregame hit last year about Jeff Ulbrich, right? And about his perspectives and things like that. And he told me when I said defensive coordinator, he goes, no, that's a head coach. Like that guy is a head coach. And they love how creative he is on the defensive side of the ball. I think they love how welcoming he is. And this is what DJ Reed told me. These aren't my words. These are DJ Reed's. He loves how welcoming he is.
This was last year when you talked to him.
Yeah, last year. Yeah, sorry. So this was a DJ Reed told me last year specifically about Jeff Ulbrich, and I don't think this has changed at all. And I can hit up DJ in a couple minutes to make sure that it didn't change at all, but I'm pretty sure he's fine with saying this. But he told me that he's the type of coach that on the sideline, your first series goes, right? Jeff is going up to every single player in the defensive line and saying, hey, what did you see? What's working? What's not? Okay, linebackers, what's working? What's not? Secondary, what's working? What's not? Okay, let's make the adjustment and get after him. If it's going well, how do we make it go even better? If it's not going well, how do we turn it around? He's that kind of a guy. He wants the best for his players. He respects his players. He has a natural respect because he is a former player himself. So this is, again, it's a guy that, in my opinion, Jeane, and I said this and I reported it a couple times last year, it was an absolute travesty that Jeff Ulbrich did not get head coaching interviews last year during the coaching cycle. He absolutely should have been receiving interest. In fact, the only real play that was there was when the San Francisco 49ers tried to hire him as their defensive coordinator, and Robert Saleh and Woody Johnson blocked that from happening, obviously because they did not want to lose him. But this is a guy that was eventually going to be a head coach. Now he gets his opportunity. And this early in the season, I mean, this could very well be if we're being honest, this could be an Antonio Pierce situation where, yeah, he's the interim coach, but come the end of the year, they're basically taking the nameplate that's above his office and just scratching out interim and making him the head coach. I mean, and I do think that Jeff will be deserving.
And I got to say this, Jeane, we've seen this type of, I guess, act before from a head coach. Just like I'm meeting in the locker room with Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles would do a lot of things behind the curtain, right? And he would also not publicly, throw guys out there. And he got a lot of ridicule for that because a lot of people was like, well, if he's not willing to call guys out and he's not willing to kind of show, the world that he's holding us accountable, then what is he really doing? And Robert Saleh kind of took that same approach. He was very much like, hey, man, I'm going to take all the arrows. I'm going to take all the heat. These guys are playing their tails off. They're doing everything I need them to do. Overall, that's all well and good, but there has to be production behind it. And I think that's what really pissed Woody off. He doesn't mind a head coach who's willing to kind of jump on a grenade for his guys and really stand in front of the firing squad. But at the end of the day, something has to turn over, and it just never did. So hopefully Jeff understands that it's not about being appeasing to the public eye, but people want to see real accountability. People want to feel like things are changing. And he's going to have to do that right out the gate. Excuse me.
All right, let's wrap this. We'll wrap this up right now with fun final thoughts. Connor, again, your thoughts. The fact the Jets fired head coach Robert Saleh, the first time Woody Johnson's ever fired a coach in season after going 2-3 this season.
Yeah, Jeane, I thought that this was possible if the Jets got their teeth kicked in London, because you know how much London means to Woody Johnson. You know how upset he gets when his team is an embarrassment. And if they just got absolutely blown out against the Vikings, I thought there was a chance he could
Sam
do something.
Darnold add that to the
drastic.
mix.
Yeah, I thought he could do something pretty drastic. When the Jets fought back the way that they did, and they were an Aaron Rodgers overthrow from winning this game. They were an Aaron Rodgers non-telegraphed pick six from winning this game. They were an Allen Lazard dropped pass from winning this game. They were a poor Aaron Rodgers throw to Mike Williams from winning this game. All of those things that I just said out loud, none of them were tied to Robert Saleh. So when I made my calls on Monday, and Monday came and Robert Saleh still did his post-game press conference with us and still spoke to us, I left saying, okay, yeah, I mean, I think the seat is absolutely hot for this Monday nighter against the Bills, absolutely. But he's safe for now as he should be because they fought back, they showed resiliency, and now they got a chance to take first place in the division. I was stunned and floored the moment that text came through from Adam Schefter, the tweet came through from Adam Schefter, and I literally sent a dozen text messages to people on all different levels of this Jets organization, and none of them saw it coming. All of them were floored. Everybody's mouth is on the ground. I think it shows just how drastic and dramatic of an adjustment this is at this point in time. Right now, like we are talking about a team that is 2-3 and a game away from first place in the AFC East. 2 of those 3 losses, the Broncos game, no excuse for that. But 2 of those 3 losses were a 6-point defeat to an undefeated Bronco team and a loss in the opener to San Francisco, a team many believe is going to be in the Super Bowl this year. Like, I don't know. Like, I read the statement and heard the statement when you just said it from Woody Johnson. Like, it's a surprising and stunning move for a team, and you just hope it's right because it's unfortunately, and it's the last thing I can say on this, and it just feels a little bit like I'm repeating. But I just don't know how the problems that plagued the Jets with Aaron Rodgers or with Robert Saleh, I don't know how they're now fixed without Robert Saleh, because the same issues that were there before are the same issues that this team's going to have now. It is offensive scheme. It is offensive accountability. It is offensive creativity. They lack all those 3 things, and Jeff Ulbrich's not going to change that.
Willie, your thoughts?
I think the biggest fear for any head coach is, and when you talk, you fall on deaf ears, right? And I think right now, when you saw what happened against the Broncos and when you saw what happened against the Minnesota Vikings, it felt like the team just wasn't responding to Robert Saleh. And now that you have Ulbrich in the building, hopefully this is the fire and the kick in the butt they need. Hopefully this thing turns in the right direction. Hopefully, offensively, to Connor's point, we see something different. What scares me is Aaron Rodgers week after week doesn't look healthy. You know, his immobility is what probably scares me the most because, you know, one thing Aaron Rodgers does really well besides throw off platform is his ability to improvise. And when you talk about a stagnant offense and him not being able to be creative with his legs and extend plays, I'm with Connor. I don't know how this gets better. The run game has to come alive. That's the only reason. It's the only way I see this offense becoming better and more efficient if they can find how to get Breece Hall going. And hopefully that opens up the pass game for Garrett Allen and company. So there's still a lot of questions out there. This is obviously dramatic, drastic, use every word in the dictionary. I didn't see this coming. I'm like Connor. I woke up this morning feeling like, all right, the Jets got the Bills Monday night. Let's give it another fight. I just didn't see it happen.
Yeah, neither. You know, I'm right there with the two of you. I did not see this happening right now today on a Tuesday. All right, well, that will do it for us. Again, Woody Johnson fired head coach Robert Saleh after a 2-3 start. First time he has fired a coach mid-season. Jeff Ulbrich, the Jets defensive coordinator, is now the interim head coach. Again, make sure you stay with SNY on all SNY's platforms, digital platform, for more on this story. And also check out Honda Sports Night tonight on SNY after Mets post-game coverage. Willie, appreciate you joining us. Connor Hughes, appreciate you joining us. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, Jets 2-3 now, head into a Monday night against Buffalo. A win with Jeff Ulbrich as their head coach. They win their first place in the AFC East.